The Red Sox are linked to pitcher Matthew Boyd, a starter who just played for the Cleveland Guardians this year. And welcome into Red Sox Digest. Before we break it all down, please make sure that you subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest Red Sox news, updates, and rumors. I will be here as often as I can to bring that all to you. And now that we are through that part of the video, let's get to what you all came here for, which was the meat. Matthew Boyd linked to the Red Sox. Let's get right into all of that breakdown. So this is the source here that we're going to be bringing up from Sports Illustrated's Patrick McAvoy. He's written a piece on an Athletic piece by Jim Bowden, who we will be getting to a quote very shortly too, that advises the Red Sox to sign a missing piece of the rotation. And so let's get right into that source, which popped up right here from Jim Bowden. And I'll let you read through this, but basically what he's saying here is he's going through all of the background that Boyd has and why he would fit, sort of the strengths he has, and then his prediction here at the end of his quote saying that he predicts that the Red Sox will go and get him for 1 year and $10 million. So leave that up for a little bit longer, but the next thing I'm going to do here is break down what I'm seeing in this quote and also the rest of his career stats and whether or not I think that this is going to be a good decision for the Red Sox to go after Matt Boyd, or maybe they should look somewhere else. So I'm going to take it down now, come back to the screen here. The first thing I want to get to before we break down is Matt Boyd's injury situation. So he's not currently injured, but Boyd has had a lot of injury history where that's the main thing that keeps him off the field. So I just wanted to get that through. That's going to come up in my breakdown here. But let's get into that breakdown now. And the first thing I always like to look at is a player's baseball reference page. So let's bring this up in the big screen. I've sorted this by year. So 2024 at the top, and then his first season in the bigs, 2015 at the bottom. It's a 10-year pro. And one of the stats I always like looking at is ERA plus, because it shows how that pitcher performed based on a 100 number being average in the major leagues for whatever year it is. So anything above that number, anything above 100 is above average. Anything below, you get it. So when he played, emphasis on when, in 2024, he was sensational with a 151 ERA plus, 51 points above average. And for those who don't love those advanced stats, a 2.72 ERA is good. That's great, really. Anything below 3, I like to say, is really good, especially in the big leagues. Now, his walk to strikeout ratio was great in those 4 games that he had decisions in and in those 8 games that he started. Granted, he only started 8 games this year. And so as we look through his pitching history, that's sort of a problem with him. Not only is he going to be entering his age 34 season, but these stats are relatively the average big league ball player. I don't love the career 4.85 ERA. And granted, the way that I'm looking at these things when I'm grading players, I like to look at the past 3 years. That's what all the major league teams will do usually when they're grading out how good a player is right now. What have you done lately? Because frankly, he's going to be a completely different player now than he was when he was 24 years old, because he went through those struggles with that 14 ERA in 2 games. Not that that says too much, but the year before he had an 8, and that was a long enough sample size with those games and games started. But he hasn't pitched over 100 innings more than 3 times in his career, and that's one of the biggest concerns for me. So if you use him out of the bullpen, maybe I like that a little bit more. But again, the Red Sox, we need starting pitching, but this is not a strong start to me. Besides, the stats when he's healthy are good. But can you think of any other Red Sox players who sound like that throughout the past couple of years? Because I certainly can't. So those are his baseball reference stats. Let's move into his baseball savant. So this is his 2024 page. And again, we're going to see a lot of this grayed out stuff because that means that the player hasn't qualified. But when you look at these, even though he hasn't qualified, and these are only 8 games, those stats that are filled in, the blue fastball velo and the blue extension, are both stats that he does qualify in. The rest he doesn't, because he just hasn't pitched long enough. But based on how he did play, they're all pretty good. Now, if you can see behind that grayed out area, those are stats in the red, and Baseball Savant's stats like this are all based on percentiles. So The higher, the redder, the better. The lower, the bluer, the worse. So 19th percentile in fastball velocity and 37th in extension. Both of those things aren't really important if you're getting outs and not allowing runs. But this season, or I shouldn't say but, this season he really wasn't. And so he was good. That hard hit rate around average, but the K rate and the whiff rate really good. The chase rate average exit velocity very good. Based on him throwing softer, I like to see that. The expected ERA and the expected batting average, both really good as well. So there's not much here though, because again, 8 games. So I brought in a bigger sample size so we can look at his full statistics for, I think, 4 different seasons here. So this was his last year where he did qualify. And you can see the pitching run value. I don't really want to break that down, but if you want to make a summary of that, bad, not good. And then his only stats that are really notable here are his hard hit rate is very good, and then his chase and whiff rate were great last year, among the best, 83rd and 82nd percentile. His velocity, not good. Ground ball rate, not good. And that's something that somewhat scares me for a guy who's not throwing very hard. He's striking out guys. His hard hit rate is good. And I'm thinking, if we remember that quote from Jim Bowden from The Athletic, it's kind of because he has a deceptive arm angle. That would be my assumption based on that, because when I see a guy who's got a low fastball velocity, a average exit velocity, and then a high hard hit percentile, I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be something going on to fool these hitters from crushing it, because even there you can see the barrel rate where they hit the ball perfectly. It's not that high. So those are his 2023 numbers. Not loving it so far. These are his 2022 numbers. A lot of these are really good, but again, you can see it's grayed out, and at the top you can see not qualified. So more of the same here. Again, the whiff and chase rates are great. The hard hit rate is among the best, but this is a really small sample size. So let's go to his 2021 numbers, the year prior where he was able to qualify. All right, so he's qualifying, and while he qualified, his stats are good and bad, but again, the K rate here is down, the whiff rate here is down, and the walk rate is way up. So it seems like Boyd became a different style pitcher after 2021, and I'm not sure which one I actually prefer, but based on his expected ERA and expected batting average, I think he is in a better spot now, although again, the sample size just isn't as large. So with that, we'll take a look at his best baseball savant season, but by no means his best season, which is right here, as it should show up. There it is, the 2019 season, where his pitching run values were all low, but his pitching stats, besides the barrel rate and the ground ball rate, were really good. So again, the expected ERA, pretty good, just above average by 18 points, batting average above average, chase rate, whiff rate, K rate, walk rate, all really good. But again, that barrel rate and the ground ball rate, not great. And to me, it all comes back down to the fact that he has only played 3 seasons of over 100 innings in baseball. And there was a comment the other day that was like, I guess like 150 innings plus is considered a lot now. And I actually thought that was a really good comment, because yeah, it sort of is, because these pitchers go down left and right the way that they throw the ball now. But Boyd really isn't one of those guys. And I do think that the overuse could be a factor, but when you get injured and you consistently keep getting injured, it doesn't, as someone who played young basketball and never was good enough, I sprained my ankle way too many times. And every single time I did, it just kept getting worse and easier to sprain. Even though the ligament grows stronger, your body's used to moving that way, and it starts to move that way. And unless you make active changes, and sometimes you can't, especially if you're a pro athlete who is going to be playing every day, you can't play less. It's kind of tough to avoid. You got to take really good care of yourself. And I'm not saying Matt Boyd doesn't do that. I don't know the guy at all, but it is a concern as from a numbers and front office business standpoint. It's a concern with Matt Boyd, and he's not the kind of arm that the Red Sox fans, me included, want to go right after, this is our number one guy. Matt Boyd would be a signing that I'd be happy with if we brought him in, but I don't want him to be one of the rentals that we're relying on to put us over the top, because yes, that kind of signing can put you over the top and is often, when they work out, the ones that are talked about in October. Look at this steal. Like, you hear John Smoltz talking about how the Red Sox signed him under the radar in October if they're there. But again, there are other pieces that have to be there for him to be able to do that. And based on the stats there, I just don't love it. I think Matt Boyd would be a nice addition, but how healthy is he going to be? And is he really going to be all that much of an upgrade? Are there the pitchers that we already have in the building who can improve and are going to be cheaper because they're already under contract? Do you spend more money going out and getting a big guy like Corbin Burnes, like we've talked about? I've talked it into videos numerous times with the star pitchers that the Red Sox could go after. And I think that that's really where their first focus should be, is just go after the bigger guys, get a big fish. It's time. And if they can't do that, then yeah, you start looking down and down. And for the Red Sox in this spot, it's tough. And I think that there are a lot of prototypes for this situation that the Red Sox can look towards and be like, yeah, okay, that didn't really work out. And there are plenty of players on the Red Sox in the past few years. James Paxton's had injury issues. When he played, he was great. And then he had a bad end of the season, and then he left the Red Sox. Then he came back, and the injury ended his season again. He was off and on when he played, and it wasn't very much. Chris Sale had injury issues, and now he's going to win a Cy Young Award with the Braves. Trevor Story's been off and on, and when he's been healthy, he's been offensively volatile, and then defensively, he's been exceptional. But again, the injuries, the health is the big question, and that might be the biggest reason that I would want to stay away from bringing in Matt Boyd and look elsewhere. But all that being said, he is a serviceable arm, and when he's been healthy recently, based on the baseball savant stats, but more so based on the baseball reference, just the key stats that he's had, he's been good enough. And really, at times, great. Because in the past 3 seasons, even though there are not very many numbers, I think, again, none of these, if you combine the last 4 seasons, it's just over 200 innings. And that, to me, is a concern. Because he had pitched almost 200 innings in 2019, but never again. And since then, he's really struggled to stay healthy. He's only getting older. So, Matthew Boyd, a solid starter, but should the Red Sox go after him and make him a top priority? I would say no. Would I be upset if they brought him in? By no means, but that's not going to move the needle. And I think that that's the kind of signing we need the Red Sox to make. A needle-moving sign to actually get me and I think other fans excited about it. So that's my breakdown on Matt Boyd, the rumors that he could be coming to the Red Sox. Thank you all for listening and watching. I'm Evan Sharrard saying so long for Red Sox Digest.